All right, everyone, we got to go back to a little bit more poll analysis now. You know, the race continues to sort of form with regards to the 2020 election. It's not just the Democratic primary polls, but also the general polls. Now, keep in mind, for some of the Democrats who have less name recognition, if you're matching up their numbers to Trump in a general election poll, sometimes they seem further ahead, like with O'Rourke, certainly. That's the case, like 10 points ahead in some of the polls. You've got to understand that that's the Kasich effect. We saw this in 2016. This was a big thing, and I suppose, you know, Beto, so-called, will probably crow about this. Oh, I'm the one that beats the Trump by the largest margin. I'm your best, safest bet. He'll make that statement. Kasich did too. If he's smart, he'll do that right now, long before the primaries begin. Kasich sort of started making that case after Super Tuesday because he was a crazy candidate. I'm almost surprised that he didn't just switch to the Democrats and jump in there or something like that, because ideologically he's much more like a Democrat. Then again, so is Marco Rubio. He could have run again. He just would have had to have a D after his name or something. But when we look at the general election polls, this is actually good for Trump. Number one, he's already ahead of Warren, arguably, in some of the polling. That's, you know, she's in number 3 place, basically. It's funny because Harris, who had sort of been the third wheel, she's declined. Another thing is Sanders is now in decline. Steep decline. He was riding in the mid-20s. Now he's somewhere in the low teens in a lot of these polls. It was funny because as little as a couple of weeks ago, a lot of Sanders fans were like, oh, well, he's on the rise. He's the big man. He's the man to beat. And then Biden gets in, shoves him down, basically, because then the white male Democratic vote all flock to him because most of those people don't want socialism. They'd glommed on to Bernie Sanders as basically, well, if I'm going to have a nut, I'm going to have a nut that's the same race and gender as me or something. Democrats have a tendency to think that way. They're kind of tribal, a little bit odd when it comes to racial and gender-based things, as we've seen time and time again. They're cut up about it. They've got, you know, stick up their ass about these issues. It's really what it's about. But let's look first at the polling with regards to Trump's approval as well, which no link in the description of this. His approval is arguably rising again. I think it was a Harris poll had him at 46. Now it was Gallup actually, their last poll. Now Gallup has consistently had him in the low 40s. For them to put him at 46, I don't know exactly why that is, why he's rising up at this particular moment. I have a feeling it may be due to the fact that the Democrats are overstretching with regards to the post-Mueller fallout. They've begun to have a toll taken on their approval, I think, because of that. But if we look generally to the Democrats' polling, you can see sort of the person to beat is Biden. He's got like 3 polls recently have him above 40 now. He's the inarguable frontrunner. The problem is, here's why it's difficult to tell what's going to happen in the race. Because Biden is a gaffe master, and because there's the possibility that he's demented, and because of the fact that he does, you know, dumb shit sometimes, he could self-sabotage. He will become the nominee if he doesn't do that. If he does a decent job at the debates, basically stays the status quo with, look, I am me, here are my ideas, I'm, you know, doesn't rock the boat too much and stays basically center-left, he will win Iowa, he gets a small boost, he can knock Sanders out in New Hampshire, he can knock Kamala Harris out in South Carolina, he can knock Warren out in Nevada. That's it. He wins. Biden becomes the Democratic nominee, and while I don't think he would win, while I think Trump would trounce him, he'd get trounced by less than a lot of the other candidates. I don't believe in this mystical strength of Bernie Sanders' bullshit argument that is very fervent but declining, apparently, fan base makes. Apparently, he's got 10 to 15% of the Democratic Party convinced he's the Messiah. That's not how you win an election. Those are Democrats that are being polled. Among left-wing voters, yeah, Biden's unpopular. If you want to energize the far-left base of the party, that particular portion of the party, yeah, you want a Sanders, you want a Kamala Harris or something like that. If Biden wins, you can guarantee that the DNC is going to want him to choose a VP candidate who's considerably younger and considerably further left. Unless they go down the Gabbard route in order to try to re-solidify support among centrists, the problem being she's so young and maybe not as popular among the further leftists, they could alienate them. That could be a problem. I think, by the way, that would be a perfect pairing. If you had a Biden candidacy with Gabbard as the VP, yes, some of that center-left and even maybe center-right support would leave the Republicans and end up going with them. They'd have a shot. It wouldn't be high, but they would have a shot at winning. The problem with appeasement with regards to the far left is that the only way to appease them is to give them everything they want. So Biden would have to come out in order to energize that part of the party, which is, again, 10-15% of the party, maybe 20 on a rainy day. He would have to say, okay, I've seen the light. All men are pigs. We need to pay reparations for slavery or something like that. Orange man bad. We need to impeach him. We need to bomb the Russians, I guess, and, and by the way, free shit. We're going to double the tax rate on the tippy tops, which is basically everyone, according to Sanders-style plans. That's not going to work. And Biden has to strenuously avoid that. I think what he realizes is that if he looks at the race, it's basically a conglomerate clusterfuck of a bunch of far leftists. And so he's the only one who's more sane. If you look at the point, Buttigieg is still on there, and I know I pronounced the name wrong, but, look at his name, and it's pretty funny. And then who was the fifth one? I think Harris is barely in the top 5 now, actually. I think she rounds out the top 5. She was a fairly strong number 3, slightly behind Sanders. Sanders rose up, now he's in decline. He's arguably in 3rd place in some of the polling now. It's crazy. You've seen a huge amount of movement since Biden got in. He's thrown the race into uproar, and he's got, again, anywhere from the mid-30s, which is all he needs to win the primaries if he doesn't stumble and do something stupid, to literally over 50%. That shows the Democrat. This is the neoliberals, the center left, the business Dems. They're the ones buoying up Biden. I think some of the more leftist individuals have flocked away from Sanders because he's too far left. He's gone too far out there. He's taken what was always a socialist message and amplified it in order to differentiate himself from another crowd of far leftists. Maybe he miscalculated and thought Biden wouldn't get in. If we look at the generic matchups, though, what do we see? We see, other than Warren, of course, which sucks to be her, I suppose. Sucks to be Democrats when she's in 3rd place. Other than her, all of the others supposedly win against Trump. But again, name recognition matters, the Kasich effect. And in the case of Biden and Sanders, you've got to understand that they've been out of the limelight more generally. Like, even the fact that Sanders is spoken of a lot of his just fluff pieces, once he's exposed to the debate stage, once other people are taking shots at him, I think that changes drastically. What happens is the Democrats, despite the DNC's best attempts, are going to have to fight tooth and nail against one another in order to be elected. They're going to take dirty shots against one another. It's what politicians do. It's what people in candidacies do. When that happens, their overall approval drops. It's just the way that it is. This is why the DNC is begging them not to attack each other. Have a love fest. Basically, let Biden get coronated is what the DNC wants. That's not going to happen. Everyone else is going to gang up on him and on one another, especially Sanders and Harris and Warren. Their approval will begin to drop. The thing is, once the general begins, what happens is, right now Trump is being compared to Democrats. He's being compared to an amorphous blob of different ideologies. Once there is, though, a Democrat, that changes. This happened in the 2016 election. Trump, behind supposedly everyone in every poll, oh my God, he's going to get washed away. Things begin to even up as election eve approaches. This happens in every single election, unless something major happens that's detrimental to one candidate or the other and really shoves their head down. You think of Mitt Romney taking a tumble right towards the end, about a month out from the election itself. Obama basically destroying him, and then Romney basically retiring from the field in shame to await his inevitable fate that Karl Rove didn't want to admit existed. So there's a little bit of election analysis. Trump's approval is up. The economy's churning along. His economic approval is sky high. He's beginning to have the damage from the Mueller probe repaired slowly over time. By election eve, he could be a 50% approval, which gives him the re-election. I don't think the Democrats are going to win this one. I could be wrong. I mean, something major could change. I mean, Trump could have a heart attack tomorrow or something. That's possible. The Democrats could have a soaring JFK-style speech moment. A dark horse candidate arrives and shoots right out of the gate, defeats Biden, Sanders, everyone else, and is like a perfect candidate. You get an Obama moment. It's possible, but do I trust that the Democratic Party has it in them to deliver that kind of victory when they keep making mistakes, and when their frontrunner, who may arguably already be above 50% in a 22, I think now, person field, do I believe that Joe Biden, of all people, is going to be able to beat Trump because he is the presumptive nominee unless something changes? No, I do not believe that Joe Biden is capable of being the president of the United States. That's about all. Peace out.